Welcome to Flip the Cap, the insurance industry's premier podcast where insurance insights flow and trending topics are always on tap. I'm your host, Catherine Smith, and today we're breaking the mold of the traditional podcast. We typically have subject matter experts and thought leaders in various different industries and lines of business within the insurance sector. But today, I get to stay in my wheelhouse of marketing, and I have amazing guests with me. Eric Holtzclaw is the Chief Strategy Officer for Liger Partners, and Cynthia Hayes is the Chief Operating Officer of Liger Partners. I've had the privilege of working with these amazing people as our marketing partners at GenCap and previous companies for, 9 or 10 years. It's
been a minute.
We're been a while. legally married at this point. But I'm going to let them introduce Liger and specifically what their company does. But what we're hoping to bring to you today is an opportunity to tap into some of the important marketing trends that are truly disruptive and things that you need to be shifting your business strategy around, opportunities that you can leverage to drive more revenue, both to yourself as an individual and to your company, and so much more. So you're not going to want to miss it. So I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves and Liger, if you will, please.
Yeah, so Liger is an interesting type of organization. We don't call ourselves a marketing agency because marketing agencies typically take a creative brief, build something, and hand it back to you. So it's very directive from the client. We established it as a marketing firm, and that means that just like an accounting or law firm, we have about 25 to 30 different skill sets underneath the roof, and that way we can interchange things on the back end. Because the clients we work with are often relatively new to marketing, or they're in the middle of a lot of transition, or they have something that they're selling that's complex. GenCap has all of those things going on.
Check every box.
Every box. And so you will run into, people think about marketing, and it's often about, selling a soda or a t-shirt or transactional pieces. And that's actually easier at the end of the day because I can give you an offer of some sort, or I can provide you with a free, trial, whatever. The things that we work on are things that can take 6 to 9 months. You got to get right in front of the right person. There's a lot of decisions. The decision is dangerous. So we like those. They're way more fun, way more complex to work in. That's the space that we live in.
Yeah, exactly. So let's kick things off with just talking about the general landscape of marketing that we work in every day. I alluded to the fact that it's a completely disruptive industry right now. And if you aren't staying ahead, you're very behind, and it's getting more and more and more the case. So let's talk about what has changed in the last 12 to 24 months, just to kick things off.
High level summary, everything.
I know.
A lot of things have changed. In particular, like Google search results, like the things that Google's looking for to get you to rank higher in search results has shifted how we've had to come at content for our clients, how often we have to do it, how we're introducing keywords. We've got to pull in quotes. It's got to be original ideas. You've got to have a subject matter expert adding their opinion in on the thing, all of that. So it for GenCap in particular, even as we are writing like high value pieces or even just blogs or videos, having to introduce new ways of just creating the content and putting it out there is just one small way. Yeah.
And the thing that I'm most excited about, because my entire career has been around transitions. So like when the internet and social media and otherwise, artificial intelligence is a huge factor that we have to look at.
Big disruptor.
Yeah, we talk about search. Many people are switching and they're not even searching. So they will immediately go to a ChatGPT or some other type of platform and start to ask questions because it starts to summate and pull things together. So if you're not creating content and doing things to both serve that engine and the primary kind of Googles and whatever of the world, you're going to miss out as that starts to come on the into the area more prominently.
It's interesting too because like AI will be searching like the social media posts a lot. Like it's not even just looking at your website content, right? So what are you putting out there on social media associated with your name, your brand, whatever? That's like hugely important to show up as well.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there's such a juxtaposition between what the two of you are saying right now, where the Google world, specific to the algorithms, wants to hear from a human. They want to hear a thought leader, an expert's opinion. They don't just want it written by ChatGPT, which is the AI side. They want that human element. But what's also driving the industry is more of the artificial intelligence that's allowing us to be so much more efficient. So the two having to be married together is really interesting. And I think that historically, the search engine optimization, SEO, is sort of this one-trick pony of, oh, we need more SEO, we need more SEO. But in one lane, we're bypassing SEO completely.
Yeah.
And on the other lane, the only way to really optimize SEO is by really getting your people engaged. So whatever you're selling, you need the people that do that best to participate, not just a marketer who's pulling levers behind the scenes.
That's right. It's an interesting tension for sure.
Yeah.
I know even a lot of journalists right now, as they're looking for responses to their questions, they have tools that are checking for AI generated content. Like, you can't respond to a journalist with generic content, right?
Yeah.
They want original ideas to put out there. Still, that human voice is important. So even things that we're leveraging AI for in the marketing world, we still then have to match to brand voice, or we still have to then add some original thought around the context that we've pulled. But it can be a great shortcut for basic general information and be a good head start.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's buckets of things. So you've got authentic content, which is going to be honored more by Google and is what AI is looking for. So I think about AI from the perspective of trying to answer a question for myself versus using it to create something, but it is creating it from the authentic information it's getting. So it's this circle, right?
You're still feeding it.
Yeah, and you touched on an important point that's one that we run into, that we struggle with together and on all of our portfolio clients. Really, the most effective marketing is when someone within your organization picks up a piece of content, a piece of some advice, and they share it.
Mm-hmm. When it's coming from people rather than an organization.
Yeah, and the problem you have in the B2B world is all the salespeople and the people within the company are like, marketing, we need you to do more in promoting the da-da-da. And we're like, we're creating it. We need you to help us push it out there. Tell people that this is actually authentically something that they should pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And that is going to get us the greatest opportunity for reach and for belief, all the things that people care about when they're going to buy from a company.
Yeah, we're going to dig into that a little bit later, but let's take it back to just some of those high-level trends of things that 12 months ago wasn't so much a thing, now very much needs to be on insurance professionals and companies' radars. Hyper-personalization, video content. Talk about some of the other trends outside of the Googles of the world and the AIs of the world.
Well, what the technology has done is allowed for hyper-personalization in a way that was very hard to do in the past, because if you can create the content much faster, you can now truly do hyper-personalization, and that is creating something that's specific to a person's persona. So what do they care about? What are the words they use? Those types of things. So there's a higher expectation that the content that I'm going to receive is going to be specifically for me, not just generic content that's being created for anyone who might be in my industry or space. It's something that really fits my need. And then on the category of video.
Video is king right now. I mean, you know this because you do videos.
All three of us have our own podcast.
That's true. We do.
We'll plug your podcast later, but
wink,
let's
wink.
continue on with mine.
We'll focus on this one at a time. It's another way that you're adding a human voice. It's much more believable, to Eric's point. People pay attention when they are trusting the source, right? If they've discounted you as someone trying to sell them something or whatever, we're big on education. So those educational videos like this one we're doing right now, teaching someone, adding value to them in a really believable and relatable way that stops the scroll on social media, or that when they've clicked through an ad or a thing, they responded to something and they're rewarded with, a real person on the other side, can be really meaningful and impactful.
And the important point that she made was stopping the scroll. Mm-hmm. It's, the average attention span of a human being is 6 seconds. A goldfish is 7. So our attention span
Bless
is 1
our
second
little
less than a
hearts.
goldfish.
We're busy.
We're busy, and so marketing needs to be visceral in some way. It needs to interrupt me. It may make me happy, make me mad, make me pay attention. Those are the
You
best.
have to stop.
But you have to stop.
That's
And
the first step.
yeah, and video, we do these longer form videos to get those sort of 7 to 30-second clips of brilliance that we can then put on social media.
Yeah, because we're going to talk for like an hour, and you're only going to see like 6 minutes of brilliance out of this.
Right.
Something that you said to me several years ago stuck because whatever meeting we were having, I was complaining, can you believe so-and-so rebranded to this name and this thing and blah, 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 blah. And you were like, but you're sitting here talking about it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I was like, but it's bad. And he said, or you said, okay, but would you have talked about it if it was just sort of status quo and what you expected? Would you be like interrupting the meeting to talk about it? And I was like, well, no.
Well, do you remember when we were originally picking the GenCap logo?
Yeah.
And there was one logo that we talked about forever because it had this certain element to it, and no one in the room liked it. But I was like, but we've now talked about it.
We keep coming
like
back to
30 minutes. That's a win. Like people are like, why did they do that? What is that? What
What does it mean?
Yeah, so that is something that we need to pay closer attention to, and it means you have to do something risky. It means that you have to be willing to kind of step outside the norm. But when you do, there was a mistake that happened. There was a mistake on LinkedIn, and I posted it to the channel. I was like, our little internal channel, and someone came in behind and said, do you think they did it on purpose? I'm like, you know what? They might have.
But look at us.
Because we're talking about it, right? Like, that's the
Very
win.
true.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit to, for better or for worse, all day, every day, we run across naysayers who think marketing is the soft stuff and that it doesn't drive revenue or, it doesn't directly impact the bottom line revenue of a company. So let's debunk that myth, shall we?
Well, in the B2B space in particular, it's about constant awareness. Like you have to constantly, as Eric alluded to earlier, you've got to be out there because there could be a 6 to 9 month buying cycle, and you've got to find the person at just the right spot in their journey when they're ready to make that next move. But they've got to know you exist before that happens, and it takes 21 plus times of them seeing a brand, of any of us seeing a brand, before we really understand who it is. We're paying attention to what they actually do and the problems they could solve for us. So I think discounting that steady overarching awareness is pretty common. Everyone wants to just get to conversion. Like, I want to run an ad, I want to sell 5 things, and I want that to, but that can happen on top of the awareness campaigns, but without that like constant awareness through, if it's paid ads, the organic, all these different mediums. Email is huge. Like we'll send out emails, and sometimes your teammates are like, stop promoting me. I can't handle any more phone calls, right? Yeah. Like sometimes that happens when it's the right time and we've hit that trigger just right. But sometimes it's like, oh yes, I'm going to save that email for 3 months and get back to it when I know this decision is coming up for me. So I think that's one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, and I do like the fact that you say the naysayers who say that marketing is all the soft stuff. They're exactly right. It is. Marketing is all does the brand look exactly the same every time we put it out there? Is the color the same? Do we repeat it? And what's interesting is brands that could afford to make the mistake to not do it consistently never do. So Target, Apple, Old Navy all use white, but they use a different shade of white. And that's why you know what the commercial is before you see the logo. Right? So there is stuff. Like a test. There is stuff like that, but it's the thing that moves people along that awareness continuum. The 21 times, then 5 to 7 for someone to close the deal, and making sure that you're consistently using the brand, consistently using the messaging, making so that you think it's like we spend hours working on an asset. You're like, let's look at this thing. They literally spend 5 to 10 seconds looking at that same asset. Yeah. And if they don't get this is a GenCap asset or this is a such and such's asset, then we've lost the battle. And we're hopeful that we can get across 1 or 2 things, even subconsciously, of, they're sending me something about this insurance or this is a new trend. And that's really all that we can impact in that space.
I get feedback all the time from our brokers, whether they're at events or they're in our agents' offices traveling here and there, and they say we always get such great feedback that GenCap's everywhere. And, I see GenCap everywhere and it looks great and I always learn so much and this and that. And obviously, for my little marketing heart, I'm like, we did it, but you can't take that to the bank. I can't say, well, John Smith literally saw us everywhere. He saw us here and here and here and here and here, and that's why he decided to, send this quote in 6 months later, and we bound a $1.5 million deal, and you generated however much revenue from it. Right. It's not always that simple.
Well, and that's where you asked what has changed. So if anyone went to school classically for marketing, and I want to say really prior to 2008, they were taught that marketing is a transactional part of the organization. The job of marketing is to get someone to pick up the phone, walk into your store, take some kind of action. And that was true. And then in 2008, we got social media, ubiquitous internet, you got, the ability to look things up on your own, all that kind of stuff. The buyer took over the journey dramatically in that space. Mm-hmm. And marketing's job went to relational. Marketing establishes the relationship because people like to buy. You don't want to be sold. You don't want to have a salesperson on top of you calling you who answers the phone anymore? All that, literally.
Not it.
Yeah.
No one answers the phone, right? And so I have to stay in front of you and establish a relationship, and it's marketing's job to do that. Because if sales does it, it looks inauthentic, because it is. The salesperson's trying to sell you something.
There's that motive.
Right, and that's where marketing can be very helpful to sales, because the salesperson then sends across a piece that marketing has put together that looks educational in nature, and is, and they're providing a benefit without selling.
It's adding value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they can get to that fifth or sixth time and be like, by the way, do you need a policy?
Exactly. I mean, no, it's no secret that that's what Flip the Cap is. That's what so many of the things that we create are. Is it's not about GenCap. We're just trying to, we have so much expertise internally, so why not share that? Mm-hmm. And there's no expectation of it coming back, but it does.
It does.
And back to that first point that we were talking about, it feeds that healthy marketing ecosystem that, just all of the wheels start spinning together. But it really originates with, we just want to share the value that we know we have to offer to our target audience. Mm-hmm. And that's not salesy. I mean, it's selfish because we know that it's going to create this healthy marketing ecosystem. We know what it'll do for the company. But everybody wins.
You're still adding value to them. Yeah, to your audience. That's the whole idea. Right?
Yeah, and you want to be top of mind. When someone has a problem that GenCap can solve, you want them to think of GenCap first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you've done that, you've won.
Yeah. Or insert company out there who's listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it takes time. It's not that immediate. We had a client once that was like, you put up that LinkedIn post and nobody called me. The one post? Really? No one called? Yeah, it takes a little time to build. Yeah.
Drat.
I know. But education is key, right? And that's when we come in and educate. We're like, here's what this looks like. Here's the game plan. Here's the strategy behind it. Here's the audience we're talking to. Here's what they're looking for and how long it takes them to respond. So understanding your audience, which, insurance agents do. They live it. They breathe it all day long. The audience here knows the issues that they deal with that they have to be able to respond to. Yeah.
So we just touched on a healthy marketing ecosystem. What does, whether you're an insurance carrier, you're a wholesaler, you're a retail agent with 10 employees, or you're a retailer with 100 offices across the country, paint the picture of what that healthy ecosystem looks like.
So the first thing, which it's so cliche, because it's you have to have a really good website. And if we walk in and tell you need to redo your website, you need to listen to us, because we do not enjoy, those are not fun projects. You have to rework the whole thing, whatever. But you need a good website, and you need a good website because it's typically the last place that the potential buyer is going to come to. But if that doesn't function well, none of the rest of the ecosystem is going to work well.
And it's the core of your messaging.
Core messaging.
It backs up everything else.
And it needs to be structured in a way that it's good for the Googles and technology and all that kind of stuff, because we see so often people are doing things that are just getting in the way of their success and their results. So we think about the website first, but we also know it's the last place someone goes.
Right.
So it's like you got to build the house first, right? And then you start to create that content ring. And what we run into is people think that, oh, I created the content ring and now I'm done. Sorry, you got to continue.
Not even close.
Not
Yeah.
even close. You got to keep feeding the beast, because everyone's looking for currency. Like, are you up to date? That can take away from your authority if someone like reads something and it's from several years ago and it's not even true anymore. So establishing content and making sure that content plays into the keywords and the kind of traffic you're trying to drive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get on the outer ring, which is the stuff that people often want to start with,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
the
like
fun stuff.
It's the fun stuff, like social media and SEO. And that social media and SEO really should be driven through the content ring that then drives people to the website. And so using SEO and social media, and the difference is, do people actively search for the thing that I'm providing? That's SEO. Or do they need to hear about it because they don't know about it? That's where you're going to get into social, and you can add ads and interruption, things like that. So those are the big three. And that's where we look first, is like, is the ecosystem healthy? Do we have a healthy ecosystem to even support just
Cohesive branding throughout, same talk track story, the messaging is solid there.
Yeah. And we've, even looking at like how are things being done, like you should be able to look at a social media profile, like go into Instagram and look at all the posts and say, oh, I know those are all coming from the same company. Like, is that consistent? And so that's 101. Those are the 3 101s.
Yeah, and then adding on top of that, like paid ads and earned media to really amplify that messaging. Once your core is solid and you know who you are and how you're showing up and who your audience is and what they're responding to, adding in those amplification efforts is, hugely impactful.
The way I think about it is, like, I love restaurants. It's probably where I spend all of my disposable income beyond travel. And so when we live in an area that has a lot of great restaurants, but on a Friday night, I'll go look up on Open Table or Resy because I'm not waiting. And I'm like, hey, and you'll find a new restaurant, and they've gotten great, the news has talked about them, whatever. So that's all that outer stuff. But then you show up at the restaurant and it's terrible. Like, they haven't done the tables right, the whatever. That's fixing that middle piece. So people like the fun stuff on the outer rings, and we do need to make sure the first pieces are working, because once we're driving people to those assets, they're not going to work effectively unless we've taken the time to build the base.
It's much less sexy, but
Yes,
the most
it is.
important
Yeah.
component.
Yeah.
And once you build it, you maintain it, and that's the thing. Like,
And you optimize.
maintain and
constantly.
optimize.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned from you all also over the years that if you're looking for something, if you're an agent who has a hard to place cannabis risk and they get sent to our website, they're like,
The homepage.
where do I
Yeah.
Right.
love our website, but it's
Yeah.
like, this isn't where I want to be.
Mm-mm.
It's like, you gave me the analogy again a long time ago. I guess I listened to you. Turns out. But if you're looking for something at Target and you walk in, you say, hey, can you help me find XYZ? And they say, oh yeah, good luck, look around. Instead of, it's aisle 6, halfway down on the left. That's what our marketing assets need to do for our target audience, which is ultimately for our agents, it's the end insured, and for us, it's our agents.
Yeah.
They don't want to be sent to the front door of Target.
They don't need to know everything.
They want to be, if they have something right then, they have a problem that they need to solve, we have to make it easy for them. So that's really the hard work that comes in for us, is building all of these ancillary landing pages that will get people based on all of those hooks that we put out there in the world, from ads and posts and blogs and everything else. We send you straight to the thing that you're looking for. That's when it works.
Yeah. You drop
That's
them
when
on the
you've done
aisle.
your job, and it's like, oh yeah, thanks. That's what I need. Click. I'm on the phone with somebody who can help me with said thing now.
Right.
Yeah, and that runs into, salespeople never want to lose any money. So they're like, but we got these other things. And the business person's like, but we're bigger than that one product. At that point, the person just wants the product or service that they're looking for. And then once you have earned them as a customer, you can talk to them about all the other stuff.
Right.
So, like, make that first conversion.
Yeah, and adding in that personalized element too. So, okay, they've been on your site now. They've visited the cannabis page. They've downloaded the thing. Like, continuing to provide educational content that we know is relevant to them, and then adding in those other and professional lines. And you may also be interested in this, right? Making sure that they're seeing long term all the other opportunities that exist with your brand or company, but not being tone deaf to them. We know you're interested in this, so we're going to make sure you're staying up to date with all the latest trends in this category.
We have talked about several different elements of the marketing industry and that have mostly been focused on external things that we're doing externally.
Oh, I like where this is going.
I know this is shameless plug for you. Cynthia has a podcast, Mixternal Messaging, that talks about all of those external things are fantastic and wonderful, and we've talked about trends to be aware of and the ecosystem that really can work for companies. But if that's not aligned with your internal culture, mission, vision, values, the brand promise that you're saying you can deliver, like the restaurant, if they pick up the phone and what you're promising isn't in alignment with what they're getting, it's a broken system.
Yeah.
You've lost them. Yeah.
So talk about the importance of those internal elements being in complete alignment with that external brand promise.
It's so actually kind of funny because when you ask, like, what is the core? What is the first thing you need to start with? I knew Eric was going to start with the marketing ecosystem, with the website and whatever. And for me, it's the core value and the mission of your company.
Yes.
It's like, what is truly at the core of the why? Why are we in business? What are we out to accomplish? And who are we doing this for? And how do we want to do it? How do we want to show up? So having your mission and your core values well defined and actually authentically expressed when no one else is listening, right? Making sure that's that authentic experience. Then when someone calls or takes an action or whatever externally is entering your internal world, they're having that consistent experience. And then you're building trust, and then they become brand ambassadors for you. Then your employees become brand ambassadors as well. GenCap is a great example of this. You guys spent a long time going through like the who we are kind of phase and making sure your external brand aligned with that authentic, we are killers in this market. We know what we're doing. We've got the best of the best here. We're not shy about it. And when people interact with GenCap, the employees are like, heck yeah, that's me, right? And they're high-fiving each other, and they're like, we're better together, and it's a whole rally cry, and everyone seizes that opportunity, but it matches, it aligns, and that trust, once it's broken, is also amplified, right? Because of how easy it is for anyone to vent on social media or share one horrible experience can be, so exaggerated and whatnot, that making sure you're having that authentic, cohesive brand experience internally and externally, I think is just huge.
Yeah, and good that you touched on that, because Liger is named after the movie Napoleon Dynamite, but it also means strategy and execution. And when we start with strategy, we may look at those kind of three categories, but we start with the business first. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we want to understand is, where are you as a business? And then we can layer marketing on top of that. That makes us different from an agency, because the agency is just like, what do you want to do? Like, what are we marketing? And we're like,
here's a campaign.
Yeah, and we want to look at the business. And I've had several very uncomfortable discovery sessions with clients or potential clients, I guess, because I don't think they ended up being that, where we talked to them about their business, and then they wanted to do a marketing approach that didn't match who they really were. Mm-hmm. And we had to have that honest conversation. Like, I had one with this company. It was an amazing company, but to do what they wanted to do, they were going to have to change out their entire staff. And they were like, yeah, but we just want you to, and I'm like, yeah, when we go do that, it's going to fail. It's going to be
flop.
Terrible. Your people don't want to do that. That's not how you're structured. Like, the second you make the first sale off that message, it's not going to be authentic to what you did, so you're going to lose the deal anyway. So why are we having this conversation? Like, well, why don't you just want to? No, you can't. I mean, you can, but it's the same way that if you've ever been into a company that tries to adopt something another company's doing, you can always tell.
Yeah.
You can smell how
it's
fake it is.
It's an imitation.
Yeah.
A non-authentic experience. Yeah.
Immediately.
And B2B so often is relational.
100%.
That you've got to, they have to trust you in order to pay you thousands or millions of dollars for a thing. It's a high risk decision, as Eric made. It's a long-term decision. There's high stakes. Their job could be on the line for it. They have to be able to trust the person they're interacting with. And if they had had a disconnected experience with your brand at any point along the way, they're going to be suspicious or critical of it.
And that really is the difference. People talk about B2B and B2C, and we talk about transactional versus relational. Mm-hmm. So is it a transactional thing? Because transactional, even high dollar transactional, isn't really that dangerous. Like you go buy, I talk about, I bought a car once that my wife hated, and she's like, yeah, you have 2 years, who cares? I don't care, right? Expensive, that's an expensive purchase.
Right.
But if I were to make a decision that was more like something
for the
more,
business,
dangerous in that category, that's relational, right? It's all about, do I trust that you're going to do for me what I want you to do? Do I believe that if I have a claim later that you're going to like be there to support me and you're going to answer my questions, those types of things. So those are considerations in the relational space, and relational is people are going to spend a lot more time on relational.
Mm-hmm. And it can be broken really easily.
Yeah.
Because you have competitors.
Right.
Who do very similar things. So it's all how
ready
you
to
show up.
Swoop in and say, oh, they didn't take care of you. We can do it for you.
And that bleeds into, we've talked about this a little bit before, but even like your personal brand.
Yeah.
So how are you showing up, person who works for company, on LinkedIn, on social, on the email exchanges you're having, all of that? Like, how are you showing up? What do you want to be known for? Liger is big on that. We want our clients to be known for all the right reasons in all the right places. So thinking at an individual level, what is your own personal brand? What do you want to be known as an expert for, in the professional world? And then how are you showing up in those spaces? Because it does matter. People will look you up. They'll research. They'll come across you one way or the other, and you want it to be for all the right reasons.
You couldn't have provided a better segue if you tried. So I'd like to really bring the conversation to an individual level, because while it's fascinating for people to sort of peek under the curtain and understand what companies do to be successful in marketing, a lot of people listening probably don't have control over some of those decisions being made at the corporate level for companies and businesses. But everyone is in control of themselves and their personal success, regardless of what that role is. So as an individual, what are some of the top items that insurance professionals can leverage in the marketing world to further either their production, to further their name and recognition in the marketplace, et cetera? Like, what are some tips we can throw at individuals to take advantage of in the market world to get themselves ahead?
I mean, the first one to think about is LinkedIn, right, for agents, and then probably second is email. So LinkedIn profiles, like if someone goes to look at you, who are you? How do you describe yourself? What's important to you, and what problems do you solve for others? We all selfishly want to know, like, what can you do for me? So making sure that that's baked in there, and that you're not just like pumping yourself up, that it's like, hey, and this is how I can contribute to you in a meaningful way, so that the right people are like, oh, I'm more curious about you now. I want to engage. Showing your thought leadership and your subject matter experts. Again, GenCap is great at this. You have some people like Jeff Sandy and others who are constantly sharing industry knowledge, resharing, adding their opinions about it and passing it along. Like, this is good, you need to know about this. It just, again, builds trust, shows your expertise in a really authentic way, where you're like, I want you.
And it's that awareness piece too, of like, if you see 21 times that Jeff Sandy, you're welcome for this plug.
I know, right?
That many times in a row, like, okay, clearly this guy only does workers' comp. Like, he's the guy for workers' comp. Yeah. Whatever it is, if you're a niche production individual in the insurance industry, you better well be shouting that from the rooftops and proving it over and over and over again.
Lean into it, yeah.
And it's free.
It's totally
free.
It takes your time, which is valuable, but impactful.
Well, I mean, I love the fact that you're like Jeff Sandy, workers' comp. Like, if you can think about what word would I want my name to be associated with, because the people that you see killing it on LinkedIn associate their name with something. Like, there's a lady I know that does promotional materials, because she's putting up videos all the time about promotional materials. And so if I needed promotional materials, I'm going to go to Hildy, right? I got another guy who does PEO. He works for a PEO company, and he does these like videos on a couch. He just does this little, I've never watched one, I don't know what he says, but I know that.
But here you are talking about
I know.
those videos
I'm like,
of him on the couch.
I see him almost every day.
It's consistent.
Sitting on the couch, like he
Yeah.
does this thing and he like tilts down that he's sitting on the couch. And you're
Mhm.
like, okay, if I'm looking for this, I'm gonna call him. Another. So it's like, think of the one thing you want to be known for. The one thing. That's so hard to
lean
choose.
into it.
And lean into it, and then
Yeah.
share content around it, comment on other people's things around it,
Mhm.
because that is not marketing's responsibility. It
No.
just literally is not. It is our responsibility to make the brand look good, to give you good assets, to allow you to use
Give you
those
something
things.
to share, give you something to
Right.
comment on, give you something to engage with.
Yes,
That's
but the success is in that's the periphery that doesn't get broken. It's like you get right to the edge, and it's like if you would just poke through, like it would open it up.
Mhm.
Something else I'd love to put on the radar of insurance professionals is really the very first thing that we talked about in this conversation was the Google algorithms changing. So not only does it matter that Google favors that like first person authority, but editors in insurance publications also know that Google favors that. And it's one thing for ABC editor at Insurance Journal to write an article, but no one cares because that person doesn't do property all day long. But if they go find a property broker to put a quote in there and to basically help write the article for them, then it gets so much more traction. And guess what? They're free. So if I'm an insurance agent or a broker or a GenCap employee or someone, these editorial calendars are public on Insurance Journal, on insurance, and IBA, etc. So if there's something that you're really good at and you see something coming up on an editorial calendar, it's not hard to find the names and the email addresses of the editorial teams and pitch yourself. Offer yourself as an expert, but make it easy for the author of that article. Give them a topic. This is something that's really timely and important in the habitational space. Your readers are really, really going to want to know about it. And I'll help you. You can interview me. I'll tell you everything I know. I'll basically write the article for you. Include my name if you want to, whatever. Like you're selflessly giving your expertise, and that makes it so much easier for that writer. Like they don't have to think about what am I going to write to fill up this habitational section of the editorial in August.
Yeah.
Some guy at XYZ company already offered me basically to write the article for me.
Well, you've got that part of it, and because and I wrote for Inc. for a couple of years, and I was every week I had to write something. I'm like, oh, like, what's the topic going to be?
Oy.
And but there is that side of it. The other side of it, of us talking about people sharing. The other decision I would make as to who I was going to feature is I would go look at their LinkedIn profile and their Twitter and otherwise, and if they were not active, I would not write about them.
Because they weren't going to amplify your story.
Yeah, the way I got paid is if the article did well.
Interesting.
So I needed someone who was, so if I had a choice between three people who could write about a topic,
A crappy profile picture and 100 connections, and they've
Yeah,
never
just-
posted.
I was not going to do
They're
that.
not
It's
reaching
Even
not
if they're on
anything.
LinkedIn every day,
not worth my time.
you don't know that.
Yeah,
No.
not
And it
worth my
doesn't
time.
it doesn't do anything
Yeah,
for you.
I was looking for an amplifier of the message I was going to create. So if I wrote about them and I knew they would share it, I was like, yep, let's do it. Sounds great. All day long.
It is attractive. And then too, the added benefit of when you do get a placement, getting a backlink to your website.
Yes.
It's huge. It's huge domain authority. It's great juice for your website. So there's all of these little like back end, like great little nuggets that boost that whole ecosystem. Yeah, that we geek out about all day long, but not everyone knows about necessarily unless, they've talked to a marketer.
Yeah, the different categories of peso. Paid,
Paid,
earned,
earned,
shared, and owned.
shared and owned. You
I know.
learned. It's all the different types of media.
What about some of the efficiencies that are being created from the AI world that insurance professionals should really be tapping into?
Well, there's literally no excuse for anyone not to be sharing on their social media now. There's so many tools out there that can help you do that. Like, you can feed stuff of what you know and what you care about if you've written things into it, and then it can start to create like what your calendar should look like and help you post it. So the world is, so if you're not a good writer, you don't really know what to say,
There's no excuse anymore.
there's no excuse. There really isn't. You should take it and make sure it's right, because then you're helping feed the ecosystem and you don't look like you just shared it, right? But there's so many of those things that make that so easy now.
Yeah, I think leveraging AI to shortcut. I mean, you can ask it for research with the citation, right? And then you can go pick up the original source and, make your comments about it. There's lots of ways to leverage to look like the smarty pants that you are.
Well, and everyone's like, well, is it cheating? And my opinion is it's not, because there's different ways to get chicken. So I can go to a farm and I can kill it.
Here's your next analogy, Kathy.
Farm, I can kill a chicken and
I'm
bring
gonna
it.
remember this one in 5 years.
So there are different ways to get chicken, right? So like if I want chicken, I could go to a farm, kill a chicken, take it home and cook it.
Yeah.
I can go to the grocery store and get the chicken and bring it home and cook it, or I can have it show up at my house. ChatGPT and AI is the chicken showing up at your house, and it's what you do with that chicken that's important. So it's not about the creation, it's the curation. So how are you curating the ingredients and making it unique and making sure it's right? Because some people are great cooks and some people are not. They do a really bad job, even though they're getting this thing, for free or it's easy. That's not the difference. The difference is going to be on what you do with it, and that's why the robots aren't going to get us
Take
all.
over the world.
Well, Cynthia and I actually talked about this on her podcast, but when you put something into ChatGPT, sure, it helps organize it and gets you there, but you can tell the imposters. You can tell that that's not a human. There's no that authentic component that, again, we continue to harp on throughout this conversation. It just goes to your point. Let it help you get the chicken to the door.
It's a tool. It's not the end all be all.
Yeah.
My daughter is an artist, and I can go into an art gallery and look at the work and I know it's her piece. I know which is her piece. So that's what we do in the world, is we create our signature around what we talk about, how we talk about it. And these tools are there to do the hard part, right? Like, let me get you 90% of the way there, but it's the 10%, the magic is in that 10%.
Yeah.
You still get to fine tune how you actually show up, right? It's like, doesn't matter what car you came in, you determine how you walk through that door. And I think that's the extra nice touch that everyone needs to take, just that little extra 5 minutes, right, to put their spin on it.
And I think that's also a good place for, if you're working with a company that has a nice marketing team in place, leaning into what are they doing, and getting a little bit of advice on how to make sure that you're
and
aligned.
resharing that content. Like, your company is
100%.
probably, like, GenCap puts out a bunch of stuff, like at least a couple things a week are coming out, cranking out really thoughtfully done. So, like, they've done the hard part. Just reshare the thing with a sentence about your take on it, or so excited to share this with you. Anything is great amplification there.
And that is an important point. So it's not enough to like it. You do need to share it, and you need to add something to it. That's what's going to give you the greatest juice on that side.
Yeah, what you just started into was how I was going to really close this out, which is, if you are an insurance professional, you're not, and you don't have a close relationship with your marketing team at your company, reach out to them. It's just like the editor component.
Yeah.
If you make their job easy, they will continue to use you as the thought leader. I can tell you the 20, 30 people within GenCap that no matter what time of day, no matter how busy they are, if I say I need help with a blog topic, I need you to tell me what's trending in XYZ industry. We need to get a piece out on this, like what's hot, what's not, what's selling, what do we need to be out there talking about. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They're like, I got you. I'll help. Let's hop on the phone.
That's easy.
You have to make someone else's job easy. So if you are a thought leader, if you are really an expert in a particular area, offer yourself up as a resource. But don't just say, hey, if you need any help, let me know. Proactively send your marketing team. This is a really interesting article I just came across that I really think that our target audience would benefit from learning about. The more you make it easy for someone, the more it's going to be easy for them to amplify you and what you do.
And I would say, as compliments to you, within our portfolio of companies, you do, the ones that we work with, you do such a good job of bridging between the sales team and marketing, because there's often this like us versus them mentality, and it isn't. Like, they're two sides to a coin. Like, they need to work very closely together. Marketing gets removed from what's working on the sales sides. Sales needs the marketing support in order to make the sale happen. So building and establishing those relationships is going to make it work so much better. So much better.
I go home at the end of the day a lot, and I'm sick of the sound of my own voice. I'm like, I've been dialing for dollars all day. What do you got? What's happening? What are you selling? What's important? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's impactful. It shows up in the white papers and the videos and all the content that your team has helped put together.
The marketing teams aren't the experts.
No.
The people that are day in and day out selling the policies in it, that's the experts. We have to get to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not meaningful information.
That's right.
That's why this is so fun to get to talk about marketing today instead of me talking about insurance. I'm like, this is so much easier.
This is my world.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
thank you so
Thank you
much.
much.
I hope that you, our amazing audience, was able to glean something outside of the insurance industry and just give you something to think about that you could further amplify either your company's brand, your personal brand, and hopefully drive much more awareness and production to your world. So I appreciate you tuning in to Flip the Cap. Flip the Cap is the insurance industry's premier podcast where insurance insights flow and trending topics are always on tap. We'll see you next time. Cheers.